Welcome to the SK Newsline in Newscast. I'm your presenter, Andre Huey. ECCU Monetary Council will continue to provide fiscal direction in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. More from SK Newsline's Glenn Bart.
As St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris handed over the chairmanship of the ECCU Monetary Council to Montserrat on 23 July 2021, he indicated that the work of the council in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic is not over. In a region that showed high declines in foreign direct investment throughout the pandemic and achieving a record 17% decline in growth within the currency union, Prime Minister Harris said it was important that the ECCU fiscal policies support financial and economic stability in member countries.
The bank continues its strong collaboration with the banking community through the Loan Repayment Deferral Program. This initiative has delivered substantial relief to the households and businesses across the union during a very difficult time. I'm advised that at its peak in September 2020, almost 25,000 loan facilities valued at a whopping $5.2 billion benefited from this program. After the initial 6 months period, this program was extended by an additional 12 months to September 2021. The matter of ongoing support to the financial sector is one which the Council should keep in focus. The ECCB, as lender of last resort, must be diligent and seek to sustain a number of discretionary actions that ease the burden on our people.
Ahead, the work of the ECCU Monetary Council will include the development of an optimal regulatory framework for the financial sector that will include the creation of a regional standards body for the financial system of ECCU member countries. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
A government official is making the case for street vending to become more formal and organized. SK Newsline's Jacinthia Teixeira reports.
The Inter-Ministerial Committee on Street Vending promised to reorganize street vending in St. Kitts in the coming weeks and months. Austin J. Freer, chair of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Street Vending, said that the reorganization will uplift the informal business sector. Speaking on the government radio and television program Working for You, Mr. Freer indicated that the government has many avenues that micro-business owners can tap into to increase their business skills, thereby enhancing opportunities for profitability.
The thing is, we were trained to view persons on the streets as budding entrepreneurs. And we were trained to basically offer the necessary support for them to develop their business. But if they're going to develop their business, we want them to develop it in a safe, healthy, and lawful way. That's what we were trained to do. So when we see people trying to make a living, if you have to break the law in order for you to make a living, that's not sustainable. There's a better way. There is a better way. If you have to endanger yourself and your patrons in order for you to make a living, come talk to me, because I know there's a better way than that.
Street vendors were removed from the streets of Bastia into the public market. While some members of the public welcome the change, as there is now more space to traverse the streets of the city, others believe the vendors are at a disadvantage as they are not in the heart of foot traffic. Some vendors welcome the change, others say the market is not adequate to accommodate all the vendors and needs upgrading. I am Jacinthia Teixeira, reporting for SKN Newsline.
When we come back, a look at how the region can become less reliant on tourism. Elliott's Funeral Parlor is the first licensed embalmer in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have a friendly and professional staff. At Elliott's Funeral Parlor, we offer a wide range of packages from $6,500. Homegoing service at chapel, locally made caskets, tailoring of outfit for deceased of your choice, wake, overnight with slideshow, funeral, death announcement, obituary, booklets, family pin-ons, memorial books, preparation of funeral arrangements, wreath, fresh and artificial, For further information, call 469-3298, 664-2007, or 660-0186. Elliott's Funeral Parlor in Gingerland, Nevis. Dedicated to those we serve.
When you need electronics or appliances, find just what you want quickly in one location. Yes, everything's under one roof. Only at Smart Electronics. We have tons of name brands, amazing service, and easy layaway plans. Summer is just around the corner, and we will save you the hassle of walking around town or going to St. Martin. We have everything you need right here in St. Kitts. So don't get confused and go different places. We are located at Port Zonte opposite the food court. Visit us today, or if you have any questions, you can call 466-4271. Smart Electronics, way to live a smart life. Terms and conditions apply.
Where will we go when the quarantine thing done and everybody touch?
An open interactive event can be described as
tremendous, effective,
on par with any conference around the world.
From exhibitions to trade shows, corporate events to product launches, from press events to political functions. We are the secret sauce behind events that make you go, wow. We've staged multiple world-class events in the Caribbean and developed the skill to deliver quality in every detail, whether the event is live or fully virtual, or maybe even somewhere in between. At Open Interactive, we got your events covered. Get your free quotation today at www.madebyopen.com.
Auto Plus Car Wash, located on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Bring your car to Auto Plus Car Wash to remove water stains, wiper marks. Get your doors, roof panel cleaned, seat floor mats, buffing, headlights, and engine wash. You get quality service at the best price at Auto Plus Car Wash. They really care for your car. Call 765-5140 or visit them on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Auto Plus Car Wash, where the service is number one. Welcome back. The ECCB governor talks about the sub-region's over-reliance on tourism and how the different approach could make our economies more resilient. Glenn Bart reports.
ECCB Governor Timothy Antwine believes the pursuit of three essential areas could propel OECS countries out of their overdependence on tourism. Speaking with the media following the 23rd July meeting of the ECCU Monetary Council, the governor said it will take a paradigm shift and a growth mindset for the sub-region to work its way out of its super reliance on tourism.
We can feed ourselves. And that's why you will see the mention made of cutting the food import bill by 25% over the next 3 years. The 2019 food import bill of $1.6 billion, cutting that by 25%, that's $400 million in savings by 2023. That would create jobs, we'd be eating healthier food, which goes to better health outcomes, and we'll be provide saving foreign exchange. Win, 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 win. Secondly, we have to move forward on the digitization of our economies. And people have to understand, when we speak about digital transformation, this is not about Bitcoin or crypto. I mean, a lot of times that's what people get. This is about enabling all sectors of the economy to function in a highly competitive, resilient, and productive way. I give the example all the time. A fisher ought to be able to upload his catch using a smartphone and sell that catch before he lands or she lands on shore. That is possible. That's where we need to go. That's technology for fisher folk. If you take it to farming, aquaponics, hydroponics, where you can use technology in these shade houses, in these greenhouse arrangements, to actually prepare and produce crops without the vagaries of pests and diseases and climate, and have these delivered to market on time and in sufficient quantities and with the reliability that is demanded by the hotels or by the supermarkets. That's enabling farming using technology. So that this notion of digital transformation touches and concerns all sectors in our economy. This is not a young people thing. This is not a technology thing. This is an all sectors enabler. And that would make a big difference right now. And finally, there's a lot that could be said. I would say we now need to embrace the blue economy. Too often, we think of our region as small island developing states. And yes, we're small islands. But what we don't sufficiently recognize is that we are large ocean states. We have large oceans, relatively speaking, far bigger than our land mass and our landscapes. And it is now for us to take an approach that really addresses the blue economy, which includes tourism, fisheries, energy, renewable energy, and a number of other things, rather than just tourism. And that requires a shift in paradigm, outlook, and a growth mindset. And so feed ourselves, digital transformation, adoption of a blue economy approach, those are three specific areas which, if addressed, will help us to address our overdependence on tourism.
The ECCB governor also has been expounding the idea of innovation to achieve higher levels of socio-economic development in the sub-region. Glenn Barrett reporting for SKN Newsline.
Charles Wilkin, CMG QC, marks 50 years in the legal profession. Legal luminary Charles Wilkin, CGM QC, marks 50 years since he was called to the bar on Thursday, the 22nd of July. 50 years ago, he was called to the bar at the age of 22. A press release from the law firm Kelsick, Wilkin and Ferdinand said Mr. Wilkin joined the practice of the late Fred Kelsick QC, which began in 1947. The practice was known as Kelsick and Wilkin until 1988, and thereafter has continued as Kelsick, Wilkin and Ferdinand. Mr. Wilkin has had a distinguished career in law over those 50 years. His focus has been on constitutional, corporate, commercial, and real estate law. Mr. Wilkin has been a Queen's Counsel since 1998. In 2009, Mr. Wilkin was honored by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II with the award of Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, CGM, for services to the law in St. Kitts and Nevis. He served as president of the St. Kitts Nevis Bar Association from 1993 to 1994, and again from 2009 to 2016. In that capacity, he participated in the meeting between the St. Kitts Nevis political parties and civil society organizations, which led to the Four Seasons Accord of November 1994. That accord brought peace to the country after the violence and social unrest which followed the general election in 1993. His second term coincided with the passage into law of the Legal Professions Act, the landmark legislation governing the legal profession. Mr. Wilkin served as chairman of the Electoral Commission of St. Kitts and Nevis from 1989 to 1996. In his report on the 1995 general election in St. Kitts and Nevis, the Commonwealth Observer Mission said this about Mr. Wilkin in that role. The chairman enjoys a high reputation among both political parties and civil society for impartiality and dedication, and this is important in the highly charged political atmosphere prevailing in the country. Mr. Wilkin is author of the book entitled Breaking the Cycle, Politics, Constitutional Change and Governance in St. Kitts and Nevis. In it, he records the events leading to the 26-month election in 2015, gives the historical background to the tribal politics of St. Kitts and Nevis, highlights the weaknesses in the constitutional governance and electoral systems of the country, and recommends changes. He has made other significant contributions to his country in business, sport, community service, the media, and public discourse. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. When we come back, regional news.
The SKN Newsline website now offers you more news. Log on to www.sknnewsline.com for local, regional, and international news. You can also watch the latest newscast and keep abreast with news in sports, all from sknnewsline.com. That's www.sknnewsline.com. News at your fingertips.
It's the new and improved SK Newsline Android mobile app. With the SK Newsline app, you can watch your news reports, the SK Newsline Newscast, sports, special features, and so much more. You can also send us a WhatsApp or call us directly. Go in the Google Play Store, search SK Newsline, and download the app today. The SK Newsline mobile app. News on the go. Welcome back. For the big stories in regional news, we now have our Caribbean news segment. The Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus has been detected in Antigua and Barbuda. ABS TV reports.
Health Ministry has confirmed the presence of the Delta variant of COVID-19 in Antigua and Barbuda. The ministry received the confirmation from the Caribbean Public Health Agency, also known as CARPHA.
Well, the health ministry says the Delta variant was identified in one of 7 COVID-19 samples taken between the 5th of May and the 2nd of July. The other 6 samples were confirmed as the Alpha variant.
The Delta variant, first identified in India in October 2020, is more transmissible and can result in more serious COVID-19 infections, hospitalizations, and even deaths. With the addition of the Delta variant, 3 of the 4 variants of concern identified by the World Health Organization have been identified in this country.
Well, the other 2 which have been identified in this country are the Alpha and Beta variants. Alpha was first identified in the United Kingdom, Beta in South Africa. Now, the public is being reminded that after recording no active cases of COVID-19 for a few weeks, the country is now seeing an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. The ministry says this reinforces the need to adhere to the public health measures to prevent and control the disease, and also is reminding the public to get vaccinated. Now, joining us with more on our developing story this evening is Chief Medical Officer Dr. Rhonda Seeley-Thomas, who joins us via telephone. Good evening, CMO. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off here. What more can you tell us about that Delta variant? Is the individual still infected? Are they still one of the 10 active cases we have now?
Good evening, Mr. Burford, and good evening to your listeners on ABS TV. I didn't get the question, sorry, I had some difficulty hearing it. Could you repeat it, please?
No problem at all. I was asking whether or not, what more you can tell us about the Delta variant, which has been identified here. Is this individual one of the 10 active cases that the country now has?
No. This individual was identified in a traveler who traveled from the United States, and the person is no longer an active case, and they're no longer in Antigua and Barbuda. So no, it's not one of the current active cases.
What more can you tell us about the contact tracing? Because we know that the Delta variant is highly transmissible. Are you concerned that the Delta variant would have already been transmitted from this individual? And what contact tracing has been done on this?
My concern is that this tells us that, as we expected, the Delta variant is now in Antigua. Yes, we picked it up in this one sample, but it doesn't mean that it's not circulating. So persons have to be extremely careful. As I would have said in the press release, the Delta variant has increased transmissibility. In fact, as compared to the other variants of concern and variants of interest. So yes, very, very concerned that although we picked it up in this sample, it could be circulated in other persons in Antigua and Barbuda.
Mourners offered their final farewell to Haiti's slain President Jovenel Moïse Friday under tight security just over 2 weeks after his assassination rattled a country mired in poverty, corruption, and political instability. More in this report from France 24.
2 weeks after he was gunned down, the mourning continues for Haitian President Jovenel Moïse. He will be buried this Friday in Cap-Haïtien, the country's second city, in his native region in the north of the island.
Comme vous comprenez, pour Jovenel Guy, toute sécurité ça yo, qu'il avait pris,
Demonstrations after Thursday's memorial mass turned violent as supporters of the late president blocked roads and demanded justice.
Mais peuple a gagné on bagaille yo envie prouver, on bagaille yo envie dire parce que ça fait nous tout mal Jean président mourir. So vu que ça fait nous tout mal, on va empêcher moun yo revendiquer doit bloquer la rue pour suivre bagaille.
Haiti's new Prime Minister Ariel Henry was sworn in on Tuesday. He vows to restore order and push ahead with elections. The investigation, meanwhile, continues with many questions remaining unanswered. The government says the killing was carried out by a team of largely Colombian mercenaries in a plot led by Haitians. The late president's wife was injured in the attack on the 7th of July. She attended a small ceremony for her husband in Cap-Haïtien ahead of his funeral.
Internationally, the average COVID-19 infections in the United States is up more than 50% compared with a week ago. Vaccines are widely available, but many people are refusing to take them. Al Jazeera's White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett reports.
Renewed warnings from the White House urging all Americans to get vaccinated as cases of COVID continue to spike, up 35% from last week, and deaths up 26%.
The Delta variant is more aggressive and much more transmissible than previously circulating strains. It is one of the most infectious respiratory viruses we know of and that I have seen in my 20-year career.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control says 83% of all new U.S. COVID cases are linked to the highly transmissible Delta variant. For now, the White House mask policy has not changed. Currently, only unvaccinated people need to wear a mask, but officials are discussing whether to change that.
So if you're in an area that has a high case rate and low rates of vaccination where Delta cases are rising, you should certainly be wearing a mask if you are unvaccinated.
The White House is also continuing to work with social media companies to tamp down on what it calls vaccine misinformation. There remains skepticism in the U.S., particularly among conservatives, about mask effectiveness and whether COVID vaccines are even safe.
If people have questions about it, let's answer the questions. Let's not say, oh, you can't put any information out. I think what would really have people have greater trust, provide all the science, provide all the information.
With 97% of all COVID deaths in the U.S. among the unvaccinated, the Biden administration is boosting investments in COVID testing in areas where vaccination rates remain low. $1.6 billion has been allocated for testing in high-risk settings like prisons and homeless shelters. $398 million has also been added to help small rural hospitals reduce infection. But already the spike in COVID cases is being felt economically. The number of Americans filing jobless claims hit a 2-month high last week, 419,000 Americans filing for benefits, as the Delta variant threatens President Biden's promise of a swift economic recovery. Kimberly Halkett, Al Jazeera, the White House.
6 people, 2 of them French nationals, according to diplomatic sources, have been arrested. It's the second time in less than a month that an assassination attempt on a high official has been thwarted by authorities. More from Africa News.
Madagascar said on Thursday it had foiled an attempt to assassinate various Malagasy figures, amongst which President Andry Rajoelina. 6 people, 2 of them French nationals, according to diplomatic sources, have been arrested. It's the second time in less than a month that an assassination attempt on a high official has been thwarted by authorities. According to all the investigations we have made, the people arrested are involved in the assassination attempt of the head of state of Madagascar. The arrests followed all the norms. They were not made by mercenaries, but by the police. 6 people were arrested, among them 2 Malagasy binationals. There is also a foreigner, and the others are Malagasy. Police said they intervened to seize weapons on Tuesday after monitoring the operation for months. President Rajoelina first seized power in March 2009 from Marc Ravalomanana with the backing of the military and has since then ruled over the island country.
The Tokyo 2020 Olympics has been officially opened, and St. Kitts and Nevis is among the over 200 countries represented. The Federation's 2 Olympic athletes were among the hundreds of athletes parading at the opening ceremony in Tokyo Friday morning Eastern Caribbean time, as evidenced in these photos. Prior to the opening ceremony, the Federal Minister of Sports, John L. Powell, and the Nevis Sports Minister, Eric Evelyn, sent best wishes to the Federation's Olympic athletes, Amia Clark and Jason Rogers, in this SK Athletics tribute video.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to wish Jason Rogers and Amaya Clark, our 2 heroes that will be representing us at the Tokyo Olympics, all the very best. You've done a fantastic job representing St. Kitts and Nevis in recent times. We know that you're going to do well. The whole of St. Kitts and Nevis are behind you. You got this. Good luck.
First of all, I want to congratulate our Olympians, Amaya Clark and Jason Rogers, for qualifying for the Tokyo Games. I just want to tell you, Amaya and Jason, that we here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we are proud of you. We are rooting for you. We're behind you 100%. We are in your corner. I just want to tell you, be cool, calm, composed, and confident. You can do this. We are with you here in St. Kitts and Nevis. 869 proud.
For a related story on the opening of the Olympics, we join Al Jazeera.
Greatest show on earth has finally now got underway, postponed last year because of the global pandemic. The 2020 Summer Olympic Games are a symbol of global unity and national pride. And during these unprecedented times, a moment when the world's greatest athletes show their strength, solidarity and courage. More than 11,000 of them from 200 nations will be competing without spectators under unprecedented restrictions. The Parade of Nations is underway this hour in what is a nearly empty stadium. There are a small number of foreign guests and dignitaries at the ceremony, the US First Lady Jill Biden and the French President Emmanuel Macron among them. The most expensive Summer Olympics in history is deeply unpopular among the people of the host nation. Nearly 80% of Japanese people say they are against holding the Games during this global health crisis. Live now to Al Jazeera's Andy Richardson, who's in Tokyo for us. So, Andy, just looking at the initial scenes from the opening ceremony, it just looked so different.
It really did, sort of scaled down, socially spaced and subdued somewhat. I mean, opening ceremonies, you can take them or leave them to an extent. Some people would question the wisdom at the best of times of spending upwards of $100 million on a enlarged firework display, but they do often set the tone for an Olympic Games, often shift public opinion back behind the Games, and these organisers really do have a huge job to do if the majority of the people of Japan are going to turn around their preconceptions about what's happening here in Tokyo and get fully behind the Games. Worth noting, actually, you were talking about the Parade of Nations. The countries Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, their athletes entering the national stadium, almost none of their athletes were wearing facial masks. Now, ahead of the Games, media, athletes were handed something called the Olympic Playbook, effectively a list of rules and regulations about what you can and can't do. There's a lot you can't do. One of the things you can't do is take your mask off in a public place. The only time you can take your mask off is if you're sleeping, eating or competing. So already the challenges of trying to maintain these safe and secure games, as they're described by the IOC, coming to the fore. And there'll be some interesting questions at the first briefing of the International Olympic Committee tomorrow to see what sanctions those two countries could face, because in theory athletes were told ahead of the games, if you don't follow the rules you could be kicked out of the Olympics, and here we are in front of billions of people around the world, millions of people around the world, and two countries have come in not wearing facial masks in the what are effectively going to be called the COVID-19 games. If we're looking for positives, I think gender parity is the one thing that we're seeing at this opening ceremony. 49% of athletes at these Olympics will be female. That's the highest number we've ever had. And for each country coming into the national stadium, for the first time there was an option of having a male and a female athlete to carry the flag, and most countries were doing that. So some positives to take out of it, but also just a lot of tension and uncertainty around Tokyo on a night when it should have been a night of celebration for the country.
And when we start seeing the full-on competitions taking place, those track and field events inside the stadium, Andy, such an odd situation for the competitors, because not only do they have to do face masks and social distancing, but they don't kind of move into the Olympic Village for a period of 4, 5 or 6 weeks. They fly in 4 or 5 days before their event, and then once their event has taken place, 2 or 3 days later, they're gone. They're on a plane home, maybe.
That's right, and it's another one of the reasons why the athletes' ceremony tonight is somewhat scaled down, because the athletes are told they're not allowed to arrive in the athletes' village until 5 days before, and then 48 hours after that they have to leave it. So it's not exactly going to be the usual atmosphere of celebration and conviviality around the athletes' village. And also, the athletes living under this constant fear of getting COVID-19, or in a situation like the opening ceremony tonight where they're surrounded by athletes from other countries. If one of those athletes does subsequently test positive for COVID-19, they could be identified as a close contact, and then who knows what? They have to train in isolation, they have to go through repeated PCR tests, and if that happens on a day of competition, their 5-year dream of competing at these games goes up in smoke. So much tension and concern around these games, not just for the organisers, but also for all the athletes involved as well.
Andy, many thanks. We'll talk to you later, I'm sure. In the meantime, thank you, Andy Richardson, there joining us live from the Olympics in Tokyo.
And that will do it for this edition of the SK Newsline Newscast. For more stories, log on to our website, www.sknewsline.com. From all of us here at SK Newsline and Channel 95, I'm Andre Huey. Thank you for watching.